Welcome back, my wonderful ladies, and welcome if you're new here. My name is Jax, and today I'll be going over our birth plan for this pregnancy. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant and have been sharing my journey here on YouTube. If you've been around for a while, you know this is an IVF pregnancy, and you know little Kingsley is still not in the heads down position. So that means for today's birth plan, we are actually going over 3 slightly different paths. What happens if I go into like spontaneous labor, what happens if I need an induction, and what happens if I need a C-section. And then throughout that, we'll go through all the basics of pain management, cord clamping, that kind of thing. I am shooting for an unpain medicated birth, so that should be interesting. Let's jump in. First things first, I'm going to be referencing 2 things. So if you see me looking down, this is what I'm looking at. One is the birthplace options and preferences form I got from the hospital I'm delivering at, and the other is my notes from my doula when we had our birth plan and preference session. We did hire a doula, and there's a few reasons for that. One, it is your biggest help with advocating within the hospital system, but also advocating and achieving an unmedicated birth and avoiding a cesarean section. The benefits of doulas are well proven and well accounted for, and given that this is probably my only live birth that I get to experience, I definitely wanted to make the most of it and shoot for my goals the first time around, since I didn't know if I was going to be getting a second chance at doing it quote unquote my way. Next, since I am shooting for an unpain medicated birth, I wanted someone there that was well-versed in the birthing process, but someone who was well-versed in pain management, natural pain management, as well as just the birth process in general. I think it's a lot to put on your partner to, be your source of pain management and encouragement, and they're obviously there and close to your heart, but I like the idea of having a professional in the birth industry there and with us the entire time, both for me and the husband. So that was the very first part of our birth plan, was hiring a doula. Next, let's talk about what happens if I just go into spontaneous labor. 2 things with that. If he is still not in the heads down position, that gets us to an automatic C-section. But let's pretend that he shifts to heads down before 40 weeks and we go into spontaneous labor. Then what are our basic birth wishes? First, let's talk birth environment. I mentioned this way back in some of my other updates. Originally, we had wanted to pursue a birth at a birth center, but that got nixed because of some, I hesitate to even call them complications, but some concerns around the placenta and the cord that made it so we needed additional monitoring. So I did need OBGYN care and wanted to just stick with a plan. I didn't want to kind of have this birth center plan that got nixed at the very last moment. I'm too type A for that. I just wanted a set game plan. So instead, we searched around and found a hospital we were more comfortable with than the hospital that my OBGYN primarily serves. Speaking of birth environment, other things that we've discussed with our birth doula. 1, very dim lighting and very quiet. I am very sensitive to light. Even in my day-to-day life, I work in the dark. I don't like a lot of lights. So I definitely want it to be quiet, that kind of thing. To help facilitate that, some noise canceling headphones. Sneak peek for a week 35 update. But I'm having a lot of sensory overload as I get farther in my pregnancy. And our doula mentioned that during labor, you do get very sensitive to touch and noise. And I was like, that sounds like me. That sounds like me already. So we're doing as much as we can to kind of minimize stimuli during the whole labor process. I'll touch on this a little bit in my hospital bag video, but I am bringing my own gown for a few reasons. But one of them is just to not have the association with the hospital. That was partially why I wanted to go with birth center in the first place, is because I have some bad associations with the hospital. But definitely being in my own gown and not the hospital gown will help kind of differentiate this experience from those. Plus it just feels less germy, right? All right, let's talk about pain management. I am trying to go with a pain med-free birth. This is for a few reasons. And if you want an epidural and you're like, yeah, I totally want an epidural, I actually think you're probably more sane than me. Nothing against epidurals. I am doing this kind of as a redemption moment for me and my body. Let's do this together type of moment. If you're new here, this is year 4 of trying to give birth to a baby. So if I can get through this, it'll be a real personal accomplishment, but also kind of That sounds weird to be like, I'm bonding with my body, but like a real redemption moment for my body. I don't know if that makes sense if you're not like in the same position where you've been so disappointed by your body in the past. That being said, there are two main types of pharmaceutical pain management, which we did discuss with our doula, just so we're educated before we get in that situation. Obviously, everything in a birth plan is more of a preference, and preferences can change in the middle of labor. But there's the injectable medications and then like an epidural. We don't use nitrous oxide like gas and air, which is pretty prevalent elsewhere in the world, I think. In the US, for some reason, it's not used as much. I do not know why. But let's talk about what is used. The injectable medications. These can only be used in early labor because they do affect the baby and make them more lethargic. And essentially, they just get you super high as well. And my doula explained that like they work up, like if this is the pain of your contraction, they might keep you kind of out of it and fuzzy up until here, and then you feel that bit at the top, which is the most intense, and it can be a little panicky, like because you didn't have any buildup, you just feel that, and then once the pain goes down, that narcotic like takes back over and you don't care. Two things I don't like about that. One, like that doesn't seem great to just feel that like top bit of pain. Two, it does affect the baby. So if you were to have a very fast delivery for some reason and it didn't have time to wear off, then that would affect how the baby's reacting. And finally, you can only get it once. So like, I don't know. I guess if you need a tiny break at the beginning of labor, like that's helpful. And finally, I don't deal with like, I guess narcotics, but things that like get you high, that start messing with your mind very well. I have very poor reactions to those kind of medications. It doesn't chill me out, I guess is the point. I don't get a nice smooth ride out of that. Like it gets weird real fast. So that wasn't really an option that appealed to me. If we do need to fall back on any pain management, it will be an epidural, which you can get after 4 centimeters. And we did talk about some reasons why it might be okay. Or in my plan of why to get an epidural. One, if labor goes on for a very long time and I haven't gotten enough sleep, I think that's a great time to get some sleep. Get an epidural, get some sleep, recharge. That's better than tiring out and getting a C-section. If an induction gets kind of out of control and contractions get too close together, too intense, because they've been augmented too much, that could also be another reason. But for all of this, I have put in my preferences that no one is to mention those things, or pain management, medicated pain management, until I bring it up. And that will just help so you don't get pestered and asked. And I think everyone at the hospital is pretty respects that quite a bit. All right, that was a lot on pain management. Next, let's talk about labor interventions. So the first one that the doula and I talked about was fetal monitoring. So those are classically those belts that you see that go across a woman's stomach to monitor the heartbeat. And we talked about as long as there is no reason for continuous monitoring, then I can have intermittent monitoring, which has been proven to be just as safe as continuous monitoring for a normal labor. There's no reason for continuous monitoring if everything else is normal. I do think hospital policies change if it is an induction. They might want continuous monitoring, and some of them have Bluetooth or wireless, even if it is continuous, which would be way preferable, right? Episiotomy, no one wants an episiotomy. I don't know why it's on the thing. Like even on this sheet, it says, I would like to avoid an episiotomy. Please apply ward compresses to allow for stretching. Yeah, like even this wasn't like, do you want one? I would like to avoid, everyone wants to avoid one. There's no good science that they do help really anything. It's a cleaner cut. It's easier to stitch closed. That's why they got popular. Let's see. Okay, next. We're going to take a little side detour here into what happens during an induction, because this all falls under the category of labor and interventions. The first one is cervical ripeners, and there's essentially 2 types. There's one that looks kind of like a tampon. I mean, they just shove it up there, and there's others that are pills that are dissolving. And essentially, their whole goal is to ripen your cervix, make it soft so it can expand out, right? if your cervix isn't already like prepped. Sometimes for inductions, it's already softened enough, it's already ripened enough, which is a good indicator that your induction is going to go well. But if it's not, they can use one of these. After talking with my doula, she said, go do some research. But she suggested that using the non-pill form, kind of like that permanent-esque tampon form, was preferable because then you can take it out. The pills dissolve and you're kind of on the ride then. Whereas if the other one works, you can then take it out and not continue absorbing that medication. But sometimes it's up to the doctor, sometimes it's up to the hospital. Next, we talked a lot about Pitocin because it's kind of the big elephant in the room when you're talking over inductions. But I was really happy to hear that she has attended many non-pain medicated births with Pitocin, and we talked over some of the things that we're going to do to make sure that I don't get overwhelmed, because you certainly can get overwhelmed. Those women on the internet aren't lying when they say things with Pitocin got out of control, they got too painful. It's not, you can't handle it. And to mitigate that, we talked about looking for signs that my body was taking over. Essentially, the Pitocin helps cause contractions, but things can get out of control when the Pitocin caused contractions overlap and augment natural contractions, and then you get an even bigger contraction, an even more painful one, and you need to be cognizant and aware enough to turn down the Pitocin as natural labor picks up. And that was our game plan, was to constantly be monitoring for signs that my body had taken over labor versus the Pitocin. Since induction is on the table for us, I don't think I've mentioned it in this video, but since this is an IVF pregnancy, I am not allowed to go past 40 weeks for very valid placental concerns. So if he's head down and everything's great, then in week 39 we would do an induction. And the other thing we talked about, I guess the last bit of that, was you can always say turn it off with Pitocin. Just because you're in the middle of an induction, just because you're trying to do this, it is still your right to refuse any medication in the hospital setting, and you can just say no. If someone's not listening to you or things get too intense, you can always turn it down, you can turn it off. Talking about delivery. We talked about the different methods of like being coached through pushing. I've never really liked the whole, okay, now push 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 method. That just seemed weird and unnatural. I guess some coaching would be helpful. Essentially, we landed on being told when my pushes are effective. Since this is my first birth, I don't know what an effective push is like. And I've heard many second times moms being like, yeah, I knew what I was doing this time around. I knew where and how to push. So that's kind of where we landed, where, you can ask for one more push, or you can ask for that. But the feedback I want from my team is whether or not it's effective. And I also don't want people doing that really hyper, like, yes, go. That stresses me out right now just thinking about it. So that's another thing my doula is going to be like on guard about, is being like, let's not do that to her. Scream at her aggressively in this moment. While I do plan on using water for pain management during the birth, I'm not aiming for a water birth. I'm not even sure if that's allowed at my hospital. I didn't inquire. It's just not something that I'm super interested in pursuing, but I do love hot water to relieve pain. I'm taking more baths in the last month to relieve stomach and back pain than I have in the rest of my entire life. All right, immediately following delivery, yes, I want the baby put on my chest. No, I don't particularly want to be the one to grab it and put it there. Seems like I'm going to be overwhelmed, a little bit busy right then. You can put it on me. Great. Do skin to skin, and then delayed cord clamping. But specifically, I did augment the hospital plan to say I want the cord to go completely white. Some hospitals have varying definitions of delayed cord clamping. That's anything from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Some just wait till it stops pulsating. And talking with my doula, it sounds like saying you want the cord to be completely white, completely devoid of blood, is a very safe option for making sure you get the goal of delayed cord clamping, which is that all the blood that belongs in the baby gets there. Neither me or the husband want to be the one to cut the cord. Again, I got other stuff on the table. I'm good. I don't need that. Delivering the placenta, which was the next topic. She's like, do you want to see it? And I was like, yeah. I want to see it. I'm not eating it. There's no science that says it's good for you, and there's science coming out saying it's potentially dangerous and transmitting diseases, and And especially, yeah, no, I'm just not into it. I just want to see it, man, because it's huge. I want to see it. And we've talked so much about this dang marginal cord insertion. Like, I want to see how marginal was it. Like, I just want to see it. And that's it. Next, we'll do our hour of skin to skin and then do all of our shots and vitamins and stuff. Circumcision. So, obviously, I have a global audience. It makes it sound like I have a global audience. Sorry, I laughed at myself because my channel is so small. But because I have a audience that doesn't just reside in the US, let's talk about circumcision for a little bit. I'm not going to talk about our personal decision, although you may be able to infer it, because that's his kibbles and bits. Like, I don't want to talk about Kingsley's kibbles and bits on here, but I do want to touch on circumcision. So to give a global picture, about 1/3 of men are circumcised. A large concentration of that are in populations that are Muslim and Jewish for religious reasons. And then in the United States, it's just more of a cultural thing. But even across the United States, it's very diverse. Some states have a 10% circumcision rate and some have a 90% circumcision rate. So I'm not going to get into the whole history of it. I just wanted to paint a context in case you only have ever been in the United States and don't realize the majority of the world doesn't circumcise. But also there is a trend down in circumcision in the United States. I think it's gone from 70 to about 50% over the last few decades. So definitely a trend down. This is partially because of immigration and other cultures that don't circumcise, coming to the United States. But also there's a movement against circumcision as body mutilation and unnecessary, especially as science has come out and said, the benefits that we kind of preached a few decades ago of circumcision aren't really there. Unless you are in a very high STD environment, think South Africa with HIV. So I will let you go. You are on YouTube. You can go find people speaking much more intelligently on this topic, but it is on Our Birth Plan, the hospital one. You have to make a decision around circumcision in the United States. Final post-birth things, we've requested that no pacifiers be used. We just didn't use them a lot with Evangeline, and I find it really helpful to learn babies' hunger cues. Pacifiers can kind of mask some of those early cues, which is the ideal time to feed them because they're less cranky. And especially in the hospital, I don't see any reason that we need to be using a pacifier. Their babies are just so chill after they're born because they're tired too. So they're literally just up to eat, down to sleep, and they're not really super fussy. So that kind of went through what happens if we get a vaginal birth, both if we have spontaneous labor or we do an induction. So if we can't get him to turn head down, he won't turn head down, then that means we are in for a C-section. And I think everyone should have a C-section plan just in case of emergency C-sections as well. But for us, we have to have that as a game plan just in case he's being a stubborn little butt and won't turn. I mean, I love you so much, Kingsley, but also... C-section is kind of the farthest up from my game plan. Our doula will attend, even if it is a C-section. She'll be my support person just throughout. Obviously, her job gets a lot easier, but she's still there to make sure that we're educated on everything the nurses are coming in and saying and doing, that we achieve as much of the birth environment as we can, as we want. More importantly, if at any point Kingsley would need to go to the NICU, then the husband could go with him and she would stay with me to support me as we finish out a C-section and go to recovery. That way the husband isn't torn between, taking care of me, supporting me, and following Kingsley and making decisions about his care. That being said, there's a few things that do carry over that we're requesting. I still want skin to skin, still want to breastfeed as soon as possible, even though that would take a while. Do want the husband in the room for sure. Doula if we can. I am afraid the husband's going to be one of those people that passes out in the OR. If it happens, I called it here. I want it on the record. I'm calling it here. It might happen. But obviously I want him there as well. All right, I think that covers most of the basics of what we're shooting for in this birth plan or the things that we discussed with our doula. Obviously, a lot of trying different positions and techniques and movements and stuff to manage pain in the beginning. That's kind of the biggest portion of it. But it was also interesting to talk about different types of pain medication and different pushing techniques and things like that. Things I hadn't quite thought about before. Kind of sparked those interests, so I really appreciate having her there for that service as well. If there's something I've missed that I didn't talk about, I'll believe it. Pregnancy brain is real. Leave it in the comments below. But otherwise, next week will be my 34-week update. And after that will be my hospital bag. And I'll be going over the differences between what's in this one versus when we had Evangeline, who was an adoption. So that's pretty different, right? We'll see. All right. Until next time, ladies, keep on fighting. Mwah.